Hello again, fourth graders, and welcome back to Math Workshop. Today's lesson is 4.11, where we're going to be talking a little bit more about area models. So you remember earlier in the year, we learned the area formula. And so all of you should know that you had to really put this in your memory and just memorize it forever, because this is a formula that you'll need to know forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, as long as you shall live. So the formula, as we know, of course, is area equals length times width. So that is the formula that we use in order to find the area, which means the space inside of a shape. So we would use this formula to find out things like if I wanted to put new carpeting in a room, I have to know how long each side of the room is in order to find out how much carpet I'll need to put on that floor. So area is what we need to find the stuff or the space inside of a particular shape. Now, earlier in the year, we used friendly, easy, nice rectangles and squares in order to practice this formula. But in today's lesson, we're going to be doing a little bit more advanced work, and we're going to be using rectilinear shapes. So what I mean by that is you're going to see shapes like this that have little juts. So the room is not going to be a perfect square or a perfect rectangle. It's going to have, like a real room would, places where maybe there's a small window here, or there's a door, or some kind of thing that makes the shape of the room not quite a perfect rectangle or a perfect square, but a rectilinear shape. The other thing that you're going to want to know is that there are some simple steps that you should follow in order to be able to solve these problems. So obviously the first one on a shape like this is, rather than trying to find the area of the whole entire shape, one of the first steps that you should do is to break the shape into parts, smaller, easier to manage parts. After you do that, you're going to want to make sure that you find the length and the width for each part that you have broken the shape into, because sometimes the story problem will tell you all of the numbers that you'll need. But in the examples that we're going to do today, we're going to have to do some detective work, and we're going to have to plug in some sides that are missing using what we know about shapes and rectangles and squares. After you have found all of the length and the width for all of the sides, you can then find the area by doing the multiplication problem. Area equals length times width. So you can find the area for each smaller part. And then, of course, in order to find the area for the entire space, you'll have to add all of those smaller area shapes back together to find the area of the whole thing. So let's do one as an example, and then you can try one on your own. So I have a shape here where some of the sides are missing. So step number one tells us that the easiest thing to do is to break this into smaller, more manageable pieces. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow this line right here where there might be a window or a door or something if this were a room. And I'm just going to kind of draw myself like a little line right here that shows that this is now a shape, a rectangle, and then this is a rectangle that we're going to do. Okay, so we're going to have two area problems that we're going to solve. Part number 2 tells us that we need to find the length and the width for each part. So let's do our detective work and see what we can find. I know that this side right here is missing. The length of this side is missing. So let's think about what we know. Well, we know that the entire length of the shape is 10 units. And we know that this part, this larger rectangle out of the shape, has a unit of 7 units, a length of 7 units. So if I want to make the entire shape 10, like it is on this side, because of course the two sides need to be the same, the missing number needs to then be 3. Because 7 plus 3 equals 10, and 10 is the length of the bottom side. So in order to make the top and the bottom the same, that needs to be 3. Now we need to find this missing length. Well, we know that the side over here on the left-hand side of our shape is 6 units. And we want this side to be the same, of course, because if it were a true rectangle, then the two short sides would be the same. So I know that part of it, I want the whole thing to equal 6. And what I know already is that this small chunk of it is 2. So if I want to make the whole thing 6, 2 plus something else has to equal 6. So that must mean that this side is 4. 4 plus the 2 means the whole length of the side would then be 6. So that makes sense. So now that I know the length and the width for both of my sides, I know that this has a length of 3 times 4. And I also know that this is 7 times 6. So I think I'm good to go. Now I need to do the work of multiplying. So I will do that work right here. 3 times 4 equals 12 square units. Now remember, it has to be square because we're talking about a two-dimensional shape. Over here, the area would be 6 times 7. Okay, 6 times 7, which of course is 42 square units. And now in order to find the area for the entire shape, I now need to put those two parts together. So I'm going to add 42 square units plus 12 square units together. And that will tell me the area for the entire rectilinear shape. 4 plus 1 is 5 units squared. So remember that when we're doing our answer, we can write our answer like this, units with a little 2 as the variable up here, hanging kind of in the sky, or I can write it like this, abbreviated for square, units. I can write it either way like that. Let's try one more, and then you're going to go off on your own and try some of these in your journal. This one is a little bit more complicated. It's got a few more missing pieces, but I know that once you look at it, you'll totally see that this is not as complicated as it looks. Whoops. Here we go. All right, so the first part is to break this into smaller pieces, right? That's the first step. So when I'm doing these problems, you can obviously do it any which way that works best for you. But for me, what's easiest is to simply mark off all of those little legs that sort of stick out on the side so that I can have one big rectangle in the middle and then smaller squares or rectangles on the outside. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to just chop off all of the little smaller parts, chop off this small part, and chop off this small part. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 big shapes that I can find the area for. The second part is to find the missing length and the missing width for all of the different shapes. So let's see what we know. We know that we're missing one up here. Well, let's see. The whole entire length of this needs to be the whole entire length of this side, right? They both need to be equal. This side says, okay, because these are not, remember, they're not going to always be the same because they're broken up into different parts, but the whole length of the side should be the same. So it looks like, 3, 6, 4, 6. Okay, so the missing side is 2, and that makes a total of 8. So this side needs to be equal to this side, 4, 6. So that means that this little section right here also should be 2. So now the whole length is 8. On this side, we've got several that are missing. The left-hand side says that the length of this side is 3. The only one that I know right here is 1. But if the whole entire thing needs to be 3, that means that this needs to be a 1 and this needs to be a 1. 1, 2, 3. That's the whole length of that side. What else is missing? Here's one. Well, in a rectangle, if this side is 1, that side has to be 1 as well. So if the top is 2, then the bottom must be 2 in order to be a true rectangle. And the last one that's missing, here's a square. I know that the top is 2, so the bottom must be 2. And if this side says 2, then this side also has to be 2. So the reason that I can easily plug those numbers in is because I'm thinking about, okay, what is the entire shape going to be? If I know one side, then the other side has to be the same length in order to be a true rectangle or a true square. So you can plug in those missing numbers simply because you know that both sides have to be the same. Now I can go into the part of doing step number 3, multiply to find the area for each individual part. So let's start with the top and kind of work our way around. So the area problem right here is length times width. So the length is 2 and the width is 2, which means the area is 4 square units. And I'm going to circle it so that I don't forget it because I've got a lot of numbers in this small space. So I'm going to really make sure that I outline that and make it big so that I can remember when I need to add. Okay, now let's do this little guy right here. The length is 1, the width is 2, which means the area is 2 square units. Down here, one length is 2 times the width of 2 equals 4 square units again. Now the inside, we remember that the whole inside was 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the width. And the length is 3. 3 times 8 equals 24 square units. So now, in order to find the area for the entire rectilinear shape, step number 4 is to add all of these parts together. So I've got 4 plus 2 plus 2 plus 24. Now let's add those together. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2 plus 1 equals 32. The last step is to write our units. So we can write it as either units squared with my variable up in the sky, or I can write it in words with abbreviation square units. So friends, as you go off to practice this today, remember your 4 steps. Try to see how you can easily break your rectilinear shape into smaller, easier to manage parts. Find the length and the width for each small part. Then do the area formula, area equals length times width. And then in order to find the area for the entire shape, you add those smaller areas together. As you go off and try this, really be careful that you've got all of the numbers on the sides labeled so that you can be really accurate. And don't forget your units, right? Square units. Don't forget your label at the end. Off you go, 4th graders.